a home has to pay land transfer tax. And this is very old school, guys. This is very old school, but it's still happening to this day. This is the tier, this is the system we use in Manitoba. Alberta doesn't even have land transfer tax. So if you go there and you buy a house, you'll not have to pay that. You do not have to pay this. So every province has a different way of taxing. Okay? So I'm going to tell you this. This table right here, that table right there, without the decimal column, the province will give you that right next to the question. To be safe, I would have that on my study sheet, like 30,000, 60,000, 60,000, 50,000, like those numbers, and the percentages that they are attributed to. And I showed you one example of, on how to calculate the land transfer tax here. So you start with the amount of the value of the home, and you start subtracting 30,000, that gets 0 taxes. The 60,000 bracket, this one right here, pays 0.5%, which is 0.005. And then you keep going until you can't go any further. If you are able to go through all 4 brackets, right, all 4 brackets, then whatever remains gets a 2% flat rate. Okay, and that once you get into the over 200,000 section, that's when you really start racking up your the amount that you're going to have to pay. Okay, so let's go to 56. 56 was a weird was different because my amount was not over 200,000. Okay, guys, so I took away the 30K of the first bracket. Then I took away 60K, and then I ended up here, and so it's 45,000, so you can no longer subtract any more. So you gotta take that percentage that is attributed to this bracket, you're in here, and you multiply it by 1% in this case, so it's $750. I'll do a couple more here with you before we do the AC. So this is your golden opportunity to get this before you have to actually show me how much you know. 190,000. I'm going to take away the 30,000. I got to get rid of the homework for now. Okay. There's that screen again, screaming at you. So this is, you know what, don't even bother going times 0 anymore. You can just feel free to say $0, right? For the first 30, we don't pay taxes. You're down to 160K. The next bracket is 60,000, and I can subtract the entire amount. This gets taxed 0.5%, which is $300. I'm down to $100,000 left to be taxed. The next bracket is 60 again. That gets taxed 1%, so that'll be $600 that you're paying. So far it's $900 you owe. Subtract, you end up with 40,000. The next would be, maybe don't copy this, but the next would be subtracting 50,000, correct? That would be my next number, but I can't because I'm down to 40,000. So you stop subtracting. And what do we tax this portion? 1.5%, because it was half, 1%, 1.5%. And what is that? Is that also 600? I think so. 600. So in this case, you pay just these, you add up these 3 numbers to come up with your total land transfer tax. So land transfer tax is 300 plus 600 plus 600. So that's 1,200 plus 300, that's $1,500 that you'd have to pay under that if you buy a house for $190,000. So think about it. Every time you buy a house, you pay land transfer tax. And so another thing you got to think about it, you know how the housing market always goes up, the price goes up, right? Goes up, goes up, goes up. Guess what? The government gets even more land transfer tax due to that phenomenon of the housing market going up. So they're benefiting greatly from this. One more. This is over 200,000. Okay, over 200,000. So you're gonna have to do minus 30K. So minus 30, minus 60, 60, 50. Okay, so you're gonna have to go through all of that. This is $0. This gets me 195,000. Just gonna look at my key. I don't want to get it wrong. So minus 60,000. You pay 0.5%. I'm telling you this is the biggest error here, right here. Some students just go 0.5 or 0.05 and they get like 3,000 or something, like a big number right here. It shouldn't be. It should be 300. You subtract, you end up with 135. The next bracket is 60,000. You pay 1% tax on that, that's 600. This gets you to 75,000. I can subtract the next bracket, which is 50,000. That gets 1.5%. That's 750. You subtract, you end up with 25,000. You no longer have anything to subtract, so you just go 0.02. So you should observe 0.5% increase as you move along here. Okay, so this is 500 bucks, right? This is $500. So your land transfer tax is 3,600, so that's 900, 1,650. So that's 2,150. Is your total land transfer tax there? Okay. Maybe it's time to give some of you will appreciate the cheat here. I don't know if it's a cheat, it's a shortcut, but I will go back to 55 for this one. If you max out, okay, if you're gonna max out and you're gonna use up these first four brackets, if you're gonna max that out and go past 200,000, these amounts always add up to 1,650. So the first 200,000, if you max all of these out, you're gonna pay 1,650 for sure. That's like maxing out every single bracket. So all you would have to do is figure out how much over 200,000 are you, how much over 200,000 are you, and just go 2% of that, and then slap on the 1,650 on top of it. If that's something that you're interested in doing, I'm gonna say I will stick to my method every single time. I'm not gonna do the shortcut because that's gonna throw some of you off. But just remember, so let's say your house is $250,000. You know you're gonna pay $1,650 on the first 200,000. But then on the 50,000 that you're over, you're gonna pay 2% taxes on that. So you just add those two numbers up and then voila, you have your final answer. I'm going to do one oddball question on 57 here, because the province has done, if you go to the bottom of 57, the province has done something like this, and students were like, what's going on here? Like, they wanted you to fill in this, and they wanted you to fill in the total land transfer tax. But don't fear, you can always do the work. There's going to be tons of room to do the work on the side. So I will go like this, 195,700, and I'll go minus 30,000. I pay 0 on that. Then I'm left with 165,700. I take away 60,000. I pay 0.5% on that. That's $300. You're left with 105,700. Take away 60,000 of that. That's 1%. That's $600 you would pay. You're left with 45,700. Can you see that? Do I subtract 50,000 here? Because that's the next number, right? You don't subtract 50,000 because that would be negative. So we go times 0.015. So you multiply these two, and let me see what that is. That's 685.50. So look up here 1 second. This 0 is that 0 right there, right? So we figured that out. The 300, that's a double check mark. You did that right there. The 600 is the triple check mark. Check, 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 right? It's that one. That's the 600 up here. So if you had to fill in this little cell that is kind of has a darker border, this is 685.50. So we can, I'm going to grab my red marker or pen. 685.50 goes right in there. Do you pay anything in here? Is there anything that's going to be in excess of 200,000? Nope, that's blank. So now you got to just add up all of these cells, and let me see what I got. If I add it all up, this is 1585.50. So nothing changed. It's just that you read the question on the exam. Does it ask you fill in the cells, or does it just ask you determine the total land transfer tax? If it's just determining the total land transfer tax and they tell you you may use this to help you out, then just leave it there, do your work as I've always shown you, and determine the total land transfer tax any which way you prefer. Okay. And then there's the, I don't know if you're familiar with the HSC Millionaire Lottery. You get that $1.6 million home on page 58. The land transfer taxes on that, let me just you would have to pay, I'll just give you the answer because this is up to you if you want to do it. But some folks don't think of this. If you win this house, you need to pay land transfer taxes on it. And I'll just give you the answer. You'd have to pay $29,650 on land transfer tax if you win that home. And then never mind insurance and never mind property taxes, you'll be paying, like you basically will have to sell the house unless you have a decent income. Right? It's still nice to win it. I'm not saying don't win the house, but some folks don't think of it. Okay.